The day began like any other, or at least that's what you thought. You were at home, going about your chores, when the phone rang with your brother's voice sounding more tense than usual. He said he needed you to go to the hospital quickly, that it was something simple, just a formality, nothing to worry about. And you, as you've always done throughout your life, dropped what you were doing and went. Because that's what family is. We rush, even without fully understanding why. You arrive, believing you'll just keep him company, maybe listen to a doctor, maybe fill out some simple form, nothing involving danger, drama, or important decisions. But nothing that day would be simple. Nothing. When you enter the hospital, you feel a strange air of urgency. People rushing through the corridors, machines beeping, chairs creaking. But your brother is there, sitting in a light blue armchair, with an expression that doesn't match someone about to undergo a simple procedure. He looks at, you as if he's waiting for something. Not comfort, not support, but rather a step. Something he's already calculated in his head before you even arrived. Before you can ask anything, he places a white envelope in your hands. It's not an official hospital envelope. It has no letterhead, no label. It's just a slightly crumpled envelope, folded at the corners, as if it had been hidden in your pocket for too long. And he, in a restrained voice, too low to be natural, says, "It's just one signature. Just one sheet of paper. Sign here for me." It's at this moment that your mind clicks for the first time. Because nobody asks you to sign something. No hospital out of nowhere. Even more so without explanation. Even more so with this rush. Even more so avoiding eye contact while handing over the paper. You hold the envelope but realize he's preventing you from opening it. He tries to keep your attention on the conversation, asks random questions about your day, talks about disconnected things as if he doesn't want you to have time to think. And his insistence, his hidden nervousness, his accelerated breathing, all of this sets off an alarm bell inside you. The truth is, you always trusted your brother. You grew up together, went through the ups and downs together. But at that moment, something was different. There was a kind of anxiety you'd never seen in him before. He seemed afraid, but not of a medical procedure. It was a different kind of fear, almost as if he were afraid something might go wrong if you just read. He repeats, "It's just a piece of paper, I swear. It's protocol. Just sign it quickly so we can get this sorted out." But the way he says soon doesn't seem normal. It sounds urgent. It sounds like pressure. It sounds like there's something there that can't risk being questioned. And it is at that moment that something inside you, perhaps instinct, perhaps discomfort, perhaps an inner voice you never learned to ignore, begins to ask, why would anyone ask to sign? Something at the hospital, so quickly, under so much pressure? Why didn't he explain what it is? Why does he insist on signing before reading? Why would the first page seem loose and easy to handle, but you feel a weight behind it? The envelope feels heavier than it should, not in physical weight, but in the weight of what it might contain. You realize it's not just a sheet of paper. You can feel more paper inside, even without opening it. And your brother notices that you notice. His expression changes. He fidgets with his hands, taps his foot, looks at the door as if expecting someone to come in and interrupt everything, or as if he's afraid someone might see what he's asking you to do. You take a deep breath. You smell that cold, hospital-like scent, a mixture of alcohol and anxiety, and slowly begin to open the envelope. Your brother, trying to maintain control of the situation, also puts his hand on the envelope, as if wanting to pull it back without drawing attention. He says, "You don't need to read everything. Trust me." And that's the second clue. Because when someone says, "Trust me," exactly when you're about to find something out, that's when you learn to be suspicious. The phrase doesn't fit the situation. It doesn't fit their haste. It doesn't fit someone who has always been transparent with you, at least until that day. The atmosphere changes. The tension thickens. It seems even the surroundings sense what's happening. A nurse walks by, glancing discreetly at you, as if something in his posture is drawing attention. And when she passes by again, she slows down, observes, and stays close. Something tells her that this isn't just a routine checkup, and it is precisely at this moment that your mind begins to prepare itself to discover that that envelope does not contain just any piece of paper. It contains something that could change your life, your responsibilities, your name, your future. But you don't know that yet. She doesn't yet know that the nurse will stop her hand seconds later. She doesn't yet know that page 4 is going to turn her life upside down. You still don't know that your brother, whom you've trusted your whole life, is hiding something so big that he can't even look you in the eye. All you know, for now, is that nothing about that request is normal, and that signature, that small signature, could be the gateway to something much bigger than you imagine. When you hold the envelope in your hands, you already notice the difference. In the air, something changes. Your brother, who is usually calm, almost languid in simple situations, now seems like a different person. He looks around repeatedly, as if expecting something to interrupt the conversation, as if he were afraid someone would appear and say, "Don't sign this." His behavior is not that of someone who needs help, nor of someone who is vulnerable facing a medical procedure. It's the behavior of someone who is trying to cover something up, and this realization begins to grow within you, slowly, like a shiver that runs up your spine and doesn't warn you when it's going to stop. He runs his hand over his face, adjusts his cap, scratches his arm, clears his throat unnecessarily. Small gestures that show nervousness, real nervousness, not the feigned kind of shyness. It's as if, with every second you hold the envelope, you're nervous, closed, and inner fear grew within him. And he insists, "Just sign it already. It's just bureaucracy. Everyone signs this." The phrase is delivered with forced nonchalance. You listen, but you don't absorb it. The human brain is wise. Sometimes it doesn't understand what's happening, but it perceives what's wrong. And you feel deeply, that its attempt to normalize the situation is exactly the opposite of what it is. And the more he talks, the more you realize the pressure hidden behind his voice. He tries to smile, but the smile doesn't reach his eyes. He tries to keep his tone light, but his breathing is rapid. He tries to look relaxed, but his leg won't stop swinging. And each of these details triggers a primal instinct in you. Protection. Not protection for him, protection your. You've known your brother since childhood. You know when he's scared. You know when he's lying. You know when he's trying to buy time or hide his intentions. And the truth is, he's always had a strange knack with words, always known how to use short, convincing phrases that calmed others. But now, none of them work on you. He starts creating small distractions, trying to control the pace of the conversation. "Did you see the game yesterday? Then we'll go eat something." It's just a piece of paper, seriously. If it were something important, I would have spoken up sooner. I'm just nervous because of the hospital, that's all. And the more he talks, the clearer it becomes that he doesn't want you to have time to think. Because if you think, you might read. And if you read, everything falls apart for him. You try to ask, "Why the rush? What exactly is that? Who asked you to fill out this document? Does the doctor know about this?" But he does everything he can to avoid answering directly. His sentences are like curves. You try to move forward and he pulls you aside. He answers with roundabout ways, generalizations, vague justifications, and you realize that his goal isn't to bring you clarity, it's to keep you in the dark. The surrounding environment also seems to conspire to increase the tension. AI. Heart monitor beeps in the distance. People walk quickly through the corridors. The television in the waiting room repeats news that you barely even process. But all of that becomes background noise. Because what really matters is what's happening between the two of you. It's what's being hidden behind that bureaucracy. He leans his body slightly forward, as if trying to block your view of the document. It's almost instinctive, as if he fears that someone, a nurse, a doctor, even another family member, might see it before you open it. And he repeats, now in a firmer tone, "Sign, please. The sooner, the better." It is at this moment that something inside you fully awakens. It's not just the initial distrust. It's not just the strangeness. It's something bigger. The clear and palpable feeling that you are being manipulated. And that feeling takes over. You notice details you hadn't noticed before. He's sweating. Your hands are cold. His pupils are dilated. He takes several deep breaths, as if trying to calm himself down from the inside. He avoids looking directly into her eyes. This last part weighs more than all the others, because your brother's gaze has always been transparent. Always. And now he looks at the floor, at the ceiling, at the hallway, but not at you. It's as if he knows that if he looked directly into your eyes, you would see the truth without him needing to say a word. The silence between you two changes too. It's no longer the natural silence of those who are waiting for something. It's a tense, uncomfortable silence, full of poorly hidden secrets. A silence that says, "If you find out what's here, I won't be able to explain myself." You try to open the envelope, and he takes a step forward, almost reflexively. He doesn't openly stop you, because that would raise even more suspicion, but his posture makes it clear that he doesn't want you to read it right then. He says with a weak smile, "Why read it? I've already read it. Everything's fine. Trust me. And that's exactly where the stomach tightens. Because trust, such a powerful word, should never be used as pressure. And he's using it. You feel the temperature of the room change. Something weighs in the air. The urgency in his voice isn't that of someone wanting to simplify bureaucracy. It's that of someone about to be exposed. It's that of someone who needs you to sign, before so that they understand what is really happening. His heart beats faster, not from fear, but from anticipation. You don't know what's on those pages, but you know it's not something small. You know your brother isn't worried about you. He's worried about himself. And then, for the first time, you realize that maybe the real reason he called you to the hospital isn't for support or companionship or routine. Maybe you're just a piece in his plan. Maybe you're there not because he needs you, but because he needs you to use you. This thought is painful. It's tough. It's cruel, but it's real. And that's exactly where you decide you're not going to sign anything without understanding it. And that decision, that simple act of resistance, will completely change the course of this story and will reveal exactly why he was so desperate. You hold the envelope for a few seconds, as if it were heavier than it should be. On the outside, it's just a blank sheet of paper. No stamp, no hospital logo. None of those markings we recognize as official. But inside, you feel there's more. The touch of your finger reveals it. It's not just a sheet folded in half. There are layers there. Layers of paper and of intention. Calmly, almost in slow motion, you open the envelope. Your brother follows every tiny movement, as if he were watching the most important scene of his life. He forces a smile, but his hands don't move with his face. His fingers tremble, and he puts one hand in his pocket, as if he wants to bury his emotions in there for no one to see. When you pull the contents out of the envelope, the first thing you notice is, it's not just one page. There are several sheets of paper, neatly fitted together, as if someone had taken care to place the most innocent one on top, to serve as a facade. You can quickly count them with your eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, discreetly fastened in the corner with an almost imperceptible staple, strategically placed to appear nothing special. Your brother notices that you've noticed the number of leaves and quickly says, the first one is the important one. The rest is just standard wording. Everyone signs like that. Everyone signs like this. This phrase echoes in your head as an attempt to normalize the absurd. Since when does everyone sign something without reading it? Since when does standards need to be hidden? You look at the first page at first glance. It really does seem simple. It has your name, your brother's name, some hospital information, and language that seems friendly. No highly technical terms right at the beginning. Nothing that jumps out like a warning in capital letters. It's like a gentle cover for a dangerous book. Phrases like authorization for accompaniment, support in medical decisions, consent to sign if necessary. Everything sounds almost normal. Almost. But the word, eventual, it bothers you. Potential need could mean anything. It could mean today, tomorrow, or a situation that no one has explained to you properly. And that's when you feel that discomfort again. You run your fingertips along the edge of the sheet and notice the paper underneath is different. The texture is the same, but the print is heavier, fuller, denser. The first sheet has plenty of white space, wide margins, and spaced out sentences. But the others seem floods, as if every millimeter had been used to add more clauses, more conditions, more things that nobody would bother to explain to you out loud. You subtly tilt the pages, and you can see part of the second one. Lots of paragraphs, numbering, sections, smaller print. Nothing there looks simple. Nothing there looks like everyone signs without reading. His brother notices his eyes drifting to the pages below and quickly pulls his attention back. Look at the first one. It's what the hospital asked for. If you read everything, we'll waste time. They're waiting. This, they're waiting, is just another push. Another attempt to put you against the clock, as if you were hindering something by taking even the slightest care. With your own signature. His haste becomes an argument, as if responsibility were an exaggeration from someone who complicates things too much. You look at the document again, now with different eyes. The first page is almost like bait. It begins with a bland text, talking about authorization to assist in decisions, agreement to represent in specific situations, support in conducting procedures. The way everything is written makes it seem like you're just offering yourself as a formal companion, someone who signs in situations where he can't hold the pen. It seems nice, generous, even affectionate. But you know, Paper accepts everything, especially when the following pages are not mentioned. You push the pages aside a little, as if you want to read with more light, and notice at the bottom, in smaller print, read all pages carefully before signing. This simple hidden phrase is like a silent scream coming from the bottom of the page. It is not in bold. It is not highlighted. It's not in red, but it's there. And suddenly that sentence carries more weight than anything your brother has told you so far. If the document itself asks you to read all the pages, why is he insisting you sign without doing it? Why does he insist so much on the idea that it's just a leaf? You decide to turn the sheet of paper slightly, just enough to see the beginning of the second page. Can you read the title? Representatives' Liability and Legal Commitment Clauses. Representative, responsibility, legal commitment. 3 words that don't go with the expression, it's just bureaucracy. They don't fit with the everyone signs approach. And they definitely don't match someone who hasn't explained anything to you at all. Your brother notices you've read the title on the second page. His tone changes. It's no longer lighthearted, no longer relaxed. Now his tone is almost impatient. You don't need to look at that now. It's standard, I told you. I'm nervous. I don't want to discuss the paperwork. Just help me, please. The phrase, just help me, comes loaded with guilt. He knows you're a soft-hearted person who always does everything for others. He knows that if he appeals to emotion, it might be easier than facing reason. And that's precisely where your mind enters an internal war. Part of you thinks, he's my brother, I should trust him. The other replies, if he's your brother, he should explain it to you. You mentally repeat what you've already seen, 4 pages. First, light, almost friendly. Too many, dense, full of paragraphs and legal terms. A title that speaks of responsibility and legal commitment. A footnote that tells you to read everything. And then a simple question begins to echo inside you, louder and louder. Why does he only want you to see the first page? Because if it were truly something simple, he wouldn't have any problem letting you read it from the first to the last line. If it were just some hospital trifle, mere record, he himself would have said, you can read everything, take your time. But he doesn't do that. On the contrary, he tries to distance yourself from the rest of the content. He speaks louder, gestures, tries to distract you, points to his watch, mentions that the doctor might call at any moment, all so that you don't have time to stop, breathe, and face those papers with the seriousness they demand. You feel a chill rising from your stomach to your chest. It's not just curiosity. Anymore. Now it is real suspicion. You hold the 4 pages firmly, as if you were holding not just paper, but a piece of your own future, because depending on what is written there, your life can be divided into before signing and after signing. And deep down, you know, if there is a page 4, that's because there's something there that nobody wants you to see first. If it were irrelevant, it wouldn't need to be hidden behind a plain sheet of paper. The stack of pages in your hands is not just a document. It's a test of conscience, of attention, of self-love. And before any pen even gets near that signature line, you feel the need to figure out exactly what's trying to be swept under the first page. You're there, the document still warm in your hands, and the atmosphere around you seems to have grown heavier. Your brother keeps insisting, his voice increasingly trembling, more impatient, more laden with that desperation that only someone hiding something feels. And it's precisely at that exact moment, the second you finally pick up the pen, deciding that you're going to at least to look where is the signature line, that's where everything changes. The nurse appears out of nowhere. She's not just any nurse. It's not someone passing by in the distance. She comes closer, close enough to touch you. As her hand approaches the paper, her hand, firm, warm, sure, holds yours with a precision that leaves no room for doubt or hesitation. It's not a light touch, not a polite request. It's a direct, urgent, almost protective gesture. You get a fright. Your brother, too. His eyes widen, as if he'd been caught red-handed before even committing the crime. The nurse glances at him quickly, then returns her gaze to you. Eyes that carry seriousness, responsibility, and something deeper, a warning. She brings her face closer, but not close enough to intimidate, just enough to ensure that only you will hear what she has to say. Her voice drops a tone, and, with the calm of someone who has seen a lot happen in that hospital, with the authority of someone who deals daily with lives and delicate decisions, she says, before signing anything, read it. Read page 4. These 4 words, page 4, hit you like an electric shock. A page 4. That's the very page your brother doesn't want you to see. The silence that follows is almost deafening. His brother tries to smile. He can't. The nurse maintains a serious expression, without blinking. You can feel your heart pounding in your neck. And the question comes, inevitably, like an inner scream. Why would she do that? After all, nurses are used to seeing family members signing documents all the time. It's part of the routine. They ask for signatures for authorizations, reports, releases, consents. They never interfere. They explain when necessary, but they don't hold someone's hand to stop them from signing. Her gesture is unusual. Not at all. It's the kind of gesture that only happens when someone realizes there's danger, real danger, hidden behind a signature. You see your brother shifting uncomfortably in his chair. He runs a hand over his face, looks at the nurse with irritation, but says nothing. He doesn't have the courage. He knows that any exaggerated reaction would only make the situation worse. The nurse, on the other hand, doesn't look away. She doesn't look at you like a staff member talking to a patient. She looks like someone who has seen this kind of planned accident more times than she'd like. She looks like someone who knows exactly what's about to happen if you put pen to paper. The air feels heavy. You can feel the blood pulsing in your temples. His brother finally tries to speak. Young lady, that's just a simple term. But she raises her hand, not to impose power, but to impose true. I know what's in that kind of document, she says firmly. And I know the kind of problems that rushed signatures can cause. Her statement has landed like a bombshell between you all. You look at her with a mixture of amazement and gratitude. She looks at her brother and sees in him something she hadn't seen before: panic. She takes a deep breath, leans in a little closer to make sure only you can hear, and speaks slowly, almost spelling it out, as if she knows that every word can make a difference in your future. Leah, A, page 4. The number 4 takes on a strange power at that moment. It's not just a document page, it's a place where the truth is hidden. A truth so uncomfortable, so heavy, that someone, his own brother, tried to cover it up with a seemingly harmless sheet of paper. You feel your hand grow cold in hers, not through touch, but through emotional impact, because you realize, right there, in that fraction of a second, that if the nurse hadn't stopped your hand, you might have signed, out of habit, out of blind trust, on impulse. Because I believe that family doesn't deceive family. But now that her interference has happened, now that someone inside the hospital has sounded such an explicit warning, you can no longer ignore it. Your mind is filled with questions. What exactly is on page 4? Why didn't she mention page 2 or page 3? Why only number 4? What is it there that is so serious that a nurse would risk interfering? What kind of document transforms a simple companion into someone who needs to be notified in this way? And most importantly, why did your brother try to hide this from you? You look at him, and he looks at you, with a silent plea, but it's not a nice plea. This is not a sincere plea for help. It's a request for complicity, of coverage, of participation in something he didn't have the courage to tell. The nurse keeps her hand on yours and now squeezes a little tighter, in a gesture that mixes firmness with protection. She doesn't know you, but at that moment, she becomes the bridge between you and an abyss you almost fell into. She concludes with a phrase that resonates like a final warning. If you are sure about what you are signing, sign it. If you don't have it, read it. You feel the force of those words surge into your chest. The pen weighs as much as lead. The pages appear larger. And page 4, that page you haven't seen yet, now pulsates in your mind like a dangerous and urgent enigma. The nurse's intervention was not just a gesture. It was a turning point. It was the first helping hand extended to stop you from falling into something you never imagined you were about to face. And from that moment on, something very serious is hidden in that document. And you'll find out, with or without your brother's permission. You take a deep breath. The pen remains still between her fingers, but now it's no longer an automatic gesture. It's as if every muscle in her body has gone into a state of alert. The nurse's voice still echoes in her head. Read page 4. You feel like that's the point of no return. Either you read it, or you hand over your life, your name, and your future to a piece of paper that nobody bothered to explain properly to you. With slightly trembling hands, you grip the document more firmly. Your brother watches your every move, his gaze almost pleading, yet also distressed. He knows that if you go all the way, everything he's tried to hide will be exposed. You quickly flip through the first page. Now, it no longer seems friendly or light. It looks like pretty packaging for something rotten inside. On the second page, the paragraphs begin to get thicker. I declare that I am aware that I assume responsibilities. I commit to being responsible for, in an irrevocable and unretractable manner. These two words, irrevocable and unretractable, they stand out like a punch in the middle of the text. You pause. They are not common words. They are not used for simple things. They are used in serious decisions, the kind that, once signed, have no going back. On the third page, the following appear, legal terms denser. The letters appear, smaller, almost as if they had been intentionally compressed to discourage reading. There are lines and more lines with phrases like, the representative assumes full financial responsibility, authorizes, on behalf of the patient, medical, civil, and financial decisions, is jointly liable for any costs arising from hospitalizations, prolonged treatments, and other associated expenses. You start to feel your chest tighten. It's not just a piece of paper anymore. It's a legal labyrinth. But it's when you finally turn to page 4 it seems like the world stops. Right at the beginning, in bolder lettering, you read the title, Transfer of Legal and Financial Responsibility. From that sentence onward, every word feels sharp. You feel as if you're reading not a document, but a sentence. With each line, the reality becomes clearer and more cruel. There are passages that you need to reread 2 or 3 times to believe what you're seeing. I declare for all legal purposes that the undersigned representative shall be responsible for all expenses arising from treatments, procedures, hospitalizations, examinations, medications, and other costs associated with the ongoing care of the patient mentioned herein. His gaze moves down a little further, and there it is, in crisp, black, perfectly legible letters, your full name. It's not a generic name. It's not a blank field. It is you. You feel a chill down your spine. It's as if each letter of your name carries a ton of weight. He's not there as a mere emergency contact. He's not there as someone who authorizes the visit or accompanies medical decisions. Your name is there as financial and legal manager. You continue reading, now with even more care, because each sentence reveals a new facet of that trap. The representative assumes, definitively, responsibility for any present and future debts to the healthcare institution. It is acknowledged that in the event of default by the patient, the amounts may be collected judicially directly from the representative. It also authorizes, if necessary, the making of medical decisions on behalf of the patient, as well as the signing of related documents, replacing the patient in situations of partial or total incapacity. Sue them legally. Ultimate responsibility. Replacing in situations of incapacity. You realize that it's not just a companion term. It's not a simple, I authorize the procedure. It's almost a disguised guardianship contract. A document, disguised as hospital bureaucracy, was about to place the burden of his brother's entire life on his shoulders. Not out of love, not through conversation, not through an honest agreement, but because planned deception. You feel your stomach churning. The hand grips the paper tightly. His eyes began to burn, not just from fear, but from the feeling of having been betrayed by someone from his own family. You continue to lower your gaze and find even more surprising clauses, the kind that would make anyone stop and think. The representative declares to be fully aware that from the signing of this document, all administrative, financial, and legal decisions related to the patient may be attributed to him, her, including pre-existing debts, agreements with health plans, financing, external collections, and other charges. Pre-existing debts, external collections, charges. In other words, it went far beyond the hospital. His brother didn't just want someone to hold the pen while he was sedated with anesthesia. He wanted someone to avoid the debts, the consequences, the responsibilities that he himself did not want to face. You swallow hard. My heart is pounding. My head seems to be spinning. The nurse remains by your side, silently respecting your time. She knows you're going through a kind of shock that doesn't come from blood, needles, or tests. It comes from a deeper place. The shock of seeing, in writing, that you were about to be used. You turn your gaze to your brother. And now it all makes sense. By press. Nervousness. It's just a leaf. Everyone signs. Trust me. He wasn't asking for help. He was trying by pushing a legal time bomb on you into your lap, without you noticing. It feels like you've been slapped without a hand. You mentally ask yourself, if I hadn't read it, if the nurse hadn't held my hand, if only I had trusted him blindly. At that very moment, you would be assuming all of his debts, all of his future treatments, all of his potential medical costs. And perhaps not only that. You could end up being held responsible for decisions you never made, for agreements you never entered into, for amounts you never authorized. The penny dropped like a ton of bricks. You almost became official guarantor of a problem that wasn't theirs without even knowing it. And the worst part isn't just the financial burden. It's the emotional weight of discovering that your brother knew all of this and still tried to go through with the plan. You go back to page 4 and read again the passage where your name appears. It's as if that piece of paper was trying to stick to you, as if the words wanted to lasso you. But not anymore. Now you've seen it. Now you know. And something changes inside you. Naivete gives way to lucidity. Blind trust gives way to the demand for respect. Love continues, because blood ties don't disappear, but it changes form. Now it's a love that no longer accepts being used as a shield or guarantee. You close the document calmly, fold the pages carefully, but with a clear decision in your heart. You're not going to sign. Because defending family doesn't mean throwing yourself into the abyss with your eyes closed. Because love is not synonymous with submission. Because no one has the right to put their name on a disguised guardianship contract without explaining every line to them beforehand. At that moment, you understand that page 4 was not just part of a document. Page 4 was a trap, a skillfully laid trap, almost perfect. It only didn't close in on you because someone, an attentive, humane, and courageous nurse, decided to give you arid light before it was too late. And from there, now is the time to confront. The air around you seems to grow heavier, as if the entire hospital has stopped for a few seconds to observe what is happening between you and your brother. The words on page 4 continue to vibrate in your mind, like an echo impossible to ignore. Reality sets in slowly, but with the force of a truth so raw it feels like it cuts through you. You realize, with painful clarity, that none of it was an accident. Nothing was improvised. Nothing was just bureaucracy. His brother planned it. Every step, each sentence, every gesture. He called you at just the right moment, with a deliberately weak voice. He chose to call you alone, without involving other family members. He waited for you to arrive to create that atmosphere of urgency. He handed her the folded envelope, hiding the other pages. It distracted you. He hurried you along. He tried to make you seem exaggerated just for wanting to read. And now, with the document open before you, the truth is revealed. He wanted to put you into a huge and silent commitment, almost invisible, almost painless, until it's too late. You gather the stack of papers, holding it tighter, as if that paper were concrete proof of the kind of betrayal you don't commit against anyone, least of all someone who has always been by your side. The feeling is so strong that you want to ask aloud, why? Why me? But the words get stuck in your chest. It's as if the disappointment is too great to flow freely. You look at him, really deeply, and you see something you hadn't seen before. Fear. Not the fear of getting sick, not the fear of a procedure, but the fear of being discovered. His gaze avoids hers. He runs his hand over his face, rubs his eyes, as if trying to erase his own guilt, but the blame lies there, wide open. The silence between you is heavy, almost unbearable, and in that silence, your mind begins to piece together everything that has happened since the moment you received the phone call. The sudden connection, the dramatic tone, by press, his growing anxiety as he watched you looking beyond the first page, the way he tried to distract you with random topics, making small talk to take your mind off the paper, the almost invisible irritation that started when you began to suspect something. The explosive reaction, albeit controlled, occurred when the nurse intervened. He was counting on one thing, your anticipated and automatic goodwill. I was counting on the fact that you've always been the one who solves problems, who helps, who provides support, who sacrifices for others. He was counting on your blind trust, the kind that exists only because you share blood and history. But now that trust is cracked. Every detail you analyze reveals more and more of the silent plan he orchestrated. It wasn't an innocent request. It wasn't an impulse. It wasn't emotional weakness caused by the hospital environment. It was strategy. And that hurts. It hurts in the deepest place, because betrayal by a stranger wounds, but betrayal by family destroys. You try to take a deep breath to organize your thoughts. The nurse beside you remains quiet, as if she understands that this moment doesn't belong to her. It belongs to the two of you, siblings, in a silent confrontation that would make any audience unnecessary. That's when you carefully place the document on your lap and ask, in a low but firm voice, "Why didn't you tell me what was inside here?" He hesitates. He opens his mouth, but doesn't answer. Date. He swallowed hard. When he finally speaks, his voice comes out tense. I needed someone. You squint, trying to understand what he really means by that. Needing someone is different from needing to deceive someone. But why this way? You insist. Why hide it? Why pressure me? Why turn this into an ambush? He shrinks back in his chair. His face changes. Now it looks smaller, dejected, laden with shame, but still trying to maintain a defensive posture. I knew you were going to say no, he murmurs. These 5 words pierce like a knife, not because they are aggressive, but because they are true, and because they reveal something even deeper. He knew he was wrong. I knew that if I were honest, if I explained everything to you beforehand, you wouldn't have accepted. So he tried to confront you with the accomplished fact. He tried to get you to sign before you had time to think. He tried to use your kindness against you. The shock begins to turn into something else. It turns into anger. Not that kind of anger that explodes, but it's the cold, silent anger that stems from disappointment. The anger of realizing that someone you loved and defended so many times, someone you forgave, helped, lent money to, welcomed, someone you supported during difficult times, that same person chose to put you in a situation that could ruin your entire life. You feel your chest tighten. My throat will get dry. His hands trembled not from fear, but from indignation. You planned all of this, you say, your voice almost breaking. You brought me here knowing what was in those pages. You tried to deceive me. He opens his hands, as if trying to defend himself when he has no real defense. I was desperate. I didn't know what to do anymore. And in that moment, however hard it may be, you realize his desperation is no excuse. No one has the right to try to solve their own chaos by throwing you into the fire. No one has the right to demand your life in exchange for the guilt they carry. And no one should ever use brotherly love as a tool for manipulation. The hospital continues to function around you. People walking, machines beeping, doors opening and closing. But to you, it all becomes a distant blur. The only thing that exists in that instant is the revelation. It wasn't a mistake. It was a silent trap. And that realization marks your chest like a hot iron. It's the moment when their naivete crumbles. It is the moment when shock definitively transforms into disillusionment. You slam the document shut, straighten your back, and for the first time in her life, she looks at her brother not as part of her heart, but as part of a problem he tried to push onto her. And this turning point, this painful awakening, will influence every decision you make from now on. The document is still in your hands, but now it weighs as if it were made of stone. Every word read, every hidden clause, every line with your name as legal and financial guarantor burns like fresh embers in your memory. And your brother, sitting across from you, seems to shrink a little more with each passing second that you remain silent. But this silence cannot last. There are questions that need to be asked, and there are answers that need to be extracted, even if they hurt. You take a deep breath, feeling the air rush heavily into your chest, and fix your eyes on him. Eyes that are no longer those of naivete or automatic trust, but of someone who finally sees the gravity of what has happened. Then, with a firm voice, without raising your tone, but filled with everything you are feeling, you ask, "Why did you lie to me?" The sentence comes out strong, clear, and sharp, and the effect is immediate. His brother shifts in his chair as if he'd been given an invisible slap. His shoulders slump slightly, his breathing quickens, and he opens his mouth as if to reply, but nothing comes out. The silence between you two is heavy, extremely heavy. He tries to look away, staring at the floor, at the wall, anywhere but you, because he knows his eyes are now mirrors, and he's not ready to see his own guilt reflected there. After a few seconds that seem like minutes, he finally stammers, I had no choice. This sentence is so empty, it almost echoes. She doesn't explain anything. It doesn't justify anything. She just tries to cover everything up with a thin layer of self-pity. You feel a wave of indignation rising. Not because I expected a perfect excuse, but because I expected, at the very least, honesty, if not before, then now. But he continues in the same cycle of escape. Didn't you have a choice? You repeat, tilting your head slightly. And that gave you the right to try to deceive me? He clenches his hands together, nervous, almost childlike gesture. His face is tense, his eyes shining as if he's about to cry, but not tears of regret, tears of fear. Fear of being exposed, Fear of what you've discovered, fear of the consequences of his own actions. I just wanted to sort things out. He tries again. It was for my own good. You don't understand. And that phrase, it was for my own good, ignites a flame within you. It's not explosive anger. It's not shouting. It's not loss of control. It's something deeper, more painful. How can someone put their own well-being above their own integrity? You lean forward, resting the document on your lap, and speak with even more firmness. For your own good? Do you really think you can hide 4 pages of financial and legal responsibility from me? Do you really think you can try to get me to sign a disguised guardianship agreement? Do you think this is for your own good? He closes his eyes, as if he wanted to disappear, but you don't stop. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Why didn't you talk to me before? Why didn't you ask for help honestly? He takes a deep breath, his chest rising and falling rapidly, and finally blurts out something closer to the truth. Because you were going to say no. The phrase, spoken through gritted teeth, spreads through the air like poison. You remain silent for a few seconds, not because he doesn't know what to say, but because he's trying to process what it really means to hear this from his own brother. He knew. I knew it was wrong. I knew it was too heavy. I knew I was crossing a line that should never be crossed. And even so, he decided to go ahead with the plan. You feel your heart clench again, but this time it's not just sadness. It's disappointment, the kind that hurts physically. So you tried to force me to say yes, you conclude. He tried to make me sign without thinking. He tried to use my trust against me. He tries to deny it, but his voice fails him. I just needed someone. You nod your head slowly. Needing someone doesn't give you the right to manipulate that person. He closes his eyes for a moment, as if trying to hide within himself. His mask slowly slips away. The ready-made justification, the rehearsed phrase, the attempt to pretend it was just bureaucracy, are gone. Now there is only the shadow of the truth, ugly, raw, uncomfortable. You go further. Because now we need to put everything on the table. You knew you were making me responsible for all your debts, didn't you? He doesn't answer. I knew you were putting my name down as the financial guarantor for your entire treatment. Silence. I knew you were asking me to carry the burden of decisions you didn't want to face. More silence. I knew that if I signed, not you, would be legally responsible for everything. He finally opens his eyes and lets slip. I couldn't take it anymore. I don't know how to sort out my life anymore. I needed someone to take over. And there it is. The truth. Dura. Hard. Direct. It wasn't for his own good. It wasn't for lack of options. It was not innocent despair. It was a conscious attempt to place the weight of his irresponsibility, emotional, financial, legal, perhaps even moral, into his own hands. It was the impulse of someone who decided that, if the boat is sinking, it's best to pull someone down with it. You feel the tears welling up, but not from weakness, from indignation. The voice comes out heavy, but firm, without trembling. I love you, but I'm not going to carry what's yours. Not like that. Not like that. Not in secret. He tries to get closer, perhaps to take your hand, but you pull back slightly. Not out of resentment, but because the wound is still open. You need space that he didn't respect when he tried to push this responsibility onto you. And then, for the first time since you arrived at the hospital, you say something that puts an end to that silent charade. If you wanted help, you should have just told the truth. He lowers his head, his face collapses, and with that, the mask finally falls off. Now you no longer see the plan, nor the manipulation. Now you see the consequences of your own actions weighing on him. But still, and this is crucial, none of that changes the fact that he tried to involve you in something that could have destroyed your life. And as you face it, firm, confident, aware of your worth, you understand that this confrontation is not just about the document. It's about boundaries. It's about respect. It's about love that refuses to be used as a tool. It's about learning that even those we love can try to hurt us, and that it's up to us to identify this, stop, and say, no. The tension in the air is still palpable. You sit with the closed document in your lap, breathing irregularly, trying to organize your thoughts after the confrontation. Your brother seems smaller, withdrawn, defeated by his own guilt. But before you can piece together everything you've just discovered, the nurse, the woman who started this whole upheaval, steps forward. She observes the two of you for a few seconds, as if gauging the emotional temperature before entering. Her face shows a mixture of empathy and firmness, that typical expression of professionals who deal with life and death, but also with silent injustices and abuses. She is not there merely as a spectator. She is there as a direct witness to a situation that, unfortunately, is not as uncommon as it should be. They see you? Nurse lets out a sigh that seems to carry years of similar stories and says, in a low but firm voice, I've seen this happen before. You immediately look up. Your brother glances to the side uncomfortably, as if he's about to shrink even further into his chair. She continues, more often than I'd like to admit. Her tone isn't accusatory, but it's clear. It's a real warning, coming from someone who knows not only the hospital environment, but also the behind-the-scenes human relationships that take place there. Relationships that are sometimes beautiful and sometimes dark. The nurse crosses her arms, adopting a professional yet protective posture. Many people come here alone, desperate, she says, now looking at you. And when they can't afford the expenses, they look for someone in their family, someone they trust, and ask for a signature without explaining. Or worse, they hide the other pages, as happened here. His brother lowers his head even further. The weight of shame seems to have finally found a place in his conscience. You listen to each word the nurse says as if you were hearing pieces of a puzzle finally fitting together. She steps closer, leaning in slightly to speak to you in a more personal way. And do you know what happens next? She asks rhetorically. The person who signed, thinking they were helping, ends up trapped in enormous debt. Debts for treatment, debts for hospitalization, old debts that the patient accumulated even before coming here. She pauses for a meaningful moment, letting the words fall like stones to the floor. I've seen people lose their cars, lose their houses. His tone becomes heavier. I've seen people facing legal action for decisions they didn't even know were made on their behalf. You feel a shiver run down your spine. Each story she tells seems like an alternate version of her own life, versions that could easily have become her reality if she had signed up without reading. The nurse continued, even more seriously. And the worst part of all, she looks at you with an almost pained expression, is that by the time the person realizes what they've signed, it's too late. The document has legal force. The hospital will charge. The insurance company will charge. The courts will charge. And nobody cares whether you knew what you were signing or not. She turns her face for a moment to her brother, who now seems to shrink back, trying to avoid her gaze. I could tell he was nervous from the moment he arrived, she says. I saw how he pressured you. I saw how he insisted you sign quickly, without reading, and that's never a good sign. Your heart aches again, not because of his attempt, but because you realize that other people have already fallen victim to the same situation. There's something profoundly unfair about noticing that this type of behavior, this silent manipulation, is more common than you might think. The nurse takes a deep breath, as if she carries a moral responsibility in speaking to you at that moment. I couldn't let you sign blindly, she says. My job isn't just giving injections or changing dressings. It's protecting patients and protecting families. It's preventing someone from leaving here with a bigger problem than the one they brought in with. These words have a huge impact on you. It's not just a warning from one employee. It is the voice of experience, from the authority, the truth. She continues. Often, those who are ill don't think straight. They don't reason clearly. Pain, fear, debt, it all gets mixed up. And then family becomes an easy way out. They ask for a signature thinking it's the only way to solve their problems. But that doesn't make it the right choice. You feel an emotional weight slowly dissolving, replaced by a kind of silent gratitude. If that nurse hadn't been there, if she had walked right past you, if she hadn't stopped your hand, you would now be trapped in an unfair contract, your entire life tied to someone else's debts and responsibilities. She notices his gaze and smiles slightly, without downplaying the seriousness of the situation. You have no idea how many people come back months later, desperate, saying, I didn't know I was signing this. She shakes her head sadly. And then it's too late. The document has already been validated. It's already registered. It's already been sent to the administration, sometimes even to the courts. His brother finally opens his mouth to speak, in a whisper. I didn't want it to be like this. The nurse doesn't judge, but it doesn't protect either. She simply says, then you should have explained. All, from beginning to end. He closes his eyes. Her phrase acts like a mirror, a cruel but necessary mirror. And then the nurse turns to you again. You did the right thing, she says. You did more than the right thing. You protected yourself. And there's nothing wrong with protecting yourself. No one has the right to put you in a position that could destroy your life, not even someone from your own family. Those last words resonate in a special way. It's as if someone finally validated what you were feeling. It's not selfish to protect yourself. Saying no isn't cold or rude. It's not harsh to ask for respect. The nurse takes a step back, breathes, and concludes. I know it hurts, she says sincerely. It hurts to see someone you love try to use you. It hurts to realize that trust has been broken. But it hurts even more when you find out too. Late, you were lucky, and you were brave. And then she finishes, looking him straight in the eyes. Never sign anything without reading it. Never accept haste as an answer. And when something seems strange, trust what you felt today. Your instinct saved you. And at that moment, you understand. The nurse not only exposed the danger, she revealed the truth. She was the authoritative voice you needed to hear to avoid falling into a trap that would have devastating consequences. After the nurses, firm words, an awkward silence fills the room. It's no longer the tense silence of minutes ago, full of manipulation, evasions, and feigned urgency. Now it's a heavy, dense, almost palpable silence. A silence that arises when the truth, finally, finds nowhere else to hide. Your brother is sitting across from you, shoulders slumped, breathing unevenly. He looks smaller than ever. The man who, minutes ago, was trying to control the situation, pressure you, manipulate time, and hide entire pages of a document, now looks like a frightened teenager, ashamed of his own actions. You are watching him, not with hatred, not with revenge, but with a profound mixture of pain and disbelief. He runs his hands over his face, rubs his red eyes, takes a deep breath, like someone trying to find courage in a place he's never looked before. And then, finally, he speaks, not with the firm, authoritative voice he used when he tried to convince you to sign, but with the broken voice of someone who has reached their breaking point. I'm in debt. The phrase hangs in the air, simple, direct, hard, but it hits you like a blow. Because it's not just the information itself, it's the fact that he hid everything, involved you in a dirty plan without telling you anything, used you as a central piece in a desperate scheme. He swallows hard and continues, I owe a lot. More than I can pay. The nurse discreetly steps aside to give you space, knowing that this conversation belongs to you two. The world seems to become a bubble where only you, your brother, and the truth that has finally decided to come out exist. What do you mean in debt? You ask, your voice low, trying to maintain emotional control. Since when? He runs his hand through his hair and lets out a short, bitter laugh, completely devoid of humor. I think it's always been that way. Ever since I started. He hesitates, taking out loan after loan. It takes you a few seconds to absorb it. Loans after loans, in debt, forever. How come this never came to light before? How did he manage to hide this from everyone? He continues explaining, as if he had finally dropped his last mask. I lost control. I started with a small loan to pay off another one. Then I made another one to solve the first one. And when I looked, interest had already accumulated, fines, charge after charge. You feel your chest tighten, not only because of the situation itself, but because you realize he's been stuck in this cycle for much longer than you thought. Why didn't you tell me before? You ask, trying to keep your voice steady. Why didn't you actually ask for help? He takes a deep breath, looks at you with tired eyes, tired of hiding, pretending, and disguising so much. Because he hesitates. I knew you were going to fight with me. I knew you were going to say that I needed to take responsibility. I knew you were going to say I had to stop running away. And I didn't want to hear that. You feel a mixture of anger and sadness rising at the same time. Anger over the deception. Sadness at realizing that he was, in fact, running away from everything and everyone. He continues. But there was a time. He squints, as if trying to block out the memory. There was a time when everything became too big. The company started charging for late payments. The bank called every day. I was afraid of losing my job. And if I lost, then I'd be finished. You realize that behind the manipulation, there was desperation. Not a noble desperation, the kind that makes someone humbly ask for help. But it's a selfish desperation that makes someone seek shortcuts. Shortcuts that hurt innocent people. He looks directly into her eyes for the first time since it all began. And what you see there is not evil. It's fear. Pure fear. I thought, he continued with difficulty, I thought that if you signed, I would have some time. A breath of fresh air. Someone to, he looks away, someone to help me carry this burden. The word load echoes in his head. To load. But it wasn't a light burden. It was his whole life. That was his financial history. And he wanted all of that placed on his shoulders, as if it were natural, as if it were his obligation. You wanted me to be your guarantor, you say, your voice more steady than you'd imagined. Not just in the hospital. In life. He doesn't answer. It is not necessary. His silence is already a complete confession. You take a deep breath, trying to process everything, but the knot in your stomach doesn't go away. Quite the opposite. It seems to get tighter. You were going to let me take over everything? You ask, your pain evident. Everything you owe? Everything you've hidden? You were going to leave me to carry this all by myself? He finally lets out silent tears. No hiccups, not a dramatic scene, only tears from someone who knew the gravity of what they had done, and still tried. I was desperate, he repeats, as if that justified anything. I didn't want to hurt you. I just thought that you always solve everything. You were always stronger than me. The phrase hurts, not because of the strong part, but for the hidden part. You always solve everything. For me. And at that moment, you understand his true motivation. It wasn't just despair. It wasn't just fear. It wasn't just irresponsibility. It was a mixture of all of that, with the certainty that he would be there to save them. Again. Once again. Like, always. He didn't just want a signature. He wanted a shield. He wanted his name to act as armor, protecting him from the consequences he himself had created. And that's not love. This is unresolved emotional dependency. It's an escape. It's silent abuse. Reality settles inside you like a newly opened wound. He wanted you to be his shield, even if it meant destroying his stability, his reputation, his peace, his life. You close your eyes for a few moments, absorbing it all. The pain is real, the revelation as well. And when he opens his eyes, the first thing he feels is not anger, it's clarity. Clearly, from this moment on, nothing between you two can be the same as before. The room seemed to shrink, as if the walls had moved a few centimeters closer together while your brother collapsed before you. The weight of his confession still hung in the air, thick as fog. The nurse watched from afar, silent, respecting the intensity of the moment, aware that there are decisions no one can make for you. Your brother wipes his face with the back of his hand, trying to regain some control, but the truth is he already lost control the moment he tried to manipulate you. He's vulnerable, exposed, and for the first time, without strategies, without excuses, without that calculated urgency he used to try to push the signature on you. And you feel your heart pounding, not from fear, but from clarity, a lucidity born from pain, and which now transforms into strength. You take a deep breath, a big, heavy, conscious breath, a breath of fresh air filled with a certainty you've always had inside, but perhaps never voiced aloud. When you lift your head and look at him again, his gaze has changed. It's no longer the look of someone who almost signed something blindly, nor the confused look of the moment he discovered everything. Now it's a firm, mature look, full of self-awareness, a look of someone who has finally understood that love without limits becomes a prison. His voice comes out calm, but with a firmness that cuts through the air. I'm not going to sign anything. You can see the impact of that on his face. It's as if a part of him still held on to hope that you would give in, hope that his soft heart would prevail, hope that you would resolve yet another crisis for him. But not this time. And then you add, with even more clarity, you need to understand one thing. Love doesn't mean accepting manipulation. The phrase comes out with the weight of a sentence, but also with the lightness of liberation. It's as if you were finally tying up the loose threads within yourself, as if you were reclaiming the emotional space that, for a long time, you unknowingly gave up. He tries to say something, perhaps to protest, perhaps to justify himself, perhaps to plead, but you raise your hand, asking for silence. For the first time, you are the one leading the conversation. You are the one setting the pace. You are the one setting the limits. I love you, you say, looking directly into his eyes. But I love myself too, and I'm not going to carry a burden that isn't mine. I'm not going to pay for mistakes you hid. I'm not going to take on debts you created. And, most importantly, you take a deep breath. I'm not going to let you use me. The word use hits him like a silent slap. He closes his eyes again. It's the truth, and he knows it. If you're in debt, you continue, then you need to deal with it. If you're afraid of losing your job, you need to seek professional help. If you're desperate, you need to look for real solutions. But getting involved like this, secretly, that's not help. That's abuse. That's disrespect. The nurse in the back closes her eyes for a moment, almost as if silently agreeing with every word. Your brother begins to tremble slightly. It's not an exaggeration. It's the trembling of someone who realizes that the plan has crumbled and that the emotional structure that supported it, you, is no longer available without conditions. He tries to say, but his voice fails him. I thought you would understand. You lean forward slightly, compassionately, but without abandoning your firmness. I understand your suffering. I understand you're scared. I understand you made a mistake and are trying to avoid the consequences. But that doesn't give you the right to ruin my life in the process. He starts to cry. And this time, they aren't manipulative tears. They're the tears of someone who realized he'd finally found a limit he'd never seen before. And it is at that moment that you understand something profound. This moment is not just about a document. It's about a lifetime of patterns. It's about the times when you helped too much. It's about the times I said yes when I wanted to say no. It's about the inner child who learned to solve everything for others, thinking that's what love was, carrying, enduring, supporting. But now you understand that true love is not eternal sacrifice. True love is respect. And respect begins with your own boundaries. You continue now with a voice more steady than ever. I'm here. I can help you find guidance. I can accompany you to financial services. I can support you emotionally. But this, you hold up the document, this I can't do. He shrugs and shakes his head, as if finally accepting the reality he had tried so hard to avoid. But I don't know where to begin, he says in an almost childlike whisper. You lean in a little closer this time with compassion, because one thing doesn't negate the other. It starts by taking responsibility. It starts by being honest. It starts by accepting that you need professional help. But it starts without destroying those who love you. He takes a deep breath, sobbing discreetly, and you realize, for the first time in a long time, that this moment is making him grow. Not because of the suffering, but because of the limit you finally set. You continue. I want you to get better. Her voice softens. I want you to get organized. I want you to face what needs to be faced. But I won't let my back become your safe haven. I won't let my name be your shield against consequences that aren't mine. The nurse takes a small step forward, almost as a silent gesture of support for what you're doing. She knows this is the kind of decision that changes history. It not only avoids debt, it avoids patterns that could last a lifetime. You close the document calmly, not angrily, not with revenge, clearly. Then you conclude, I'm not going to sign. And you need to accept that. And from now on, you're going to have to sort out your life with honesty, not with shortcuts, not with manipulation, not with lies. He lowers his head again, but now there's something different. It's not just shame. It's surrender. It's awareness. It's the acceptance that, for the first time, you're not going to save him. You're going to teach him boundaries. And it is, at that moment, with that firm and painful decision, that you realize. Turning the tables wasn't an act of harshness. It was an act of self-love. And the first step in rebuilding any relationship, including the relationship with yourself, is to set emotional and legal boundaries where before there was only surrender. The weight of your decision still hangs in the air when everything finally begins to crumble, not for you, but for him. Your brother, hearing your firm and non-negotiable no, feels a wave of frustration rise so quickly that his face changes color in an instant. He opens and closes his hands, breathes deeply angrily, and it's as if the nervousness that previously seemed like insecurity has now turned into irritation. The silence becomes tense again. But this time, you are no longer vulnerable. You are standing firm, rooted, safe. He jumps up from the chair so quickly that the nurse takes a slight step back, just to be safe. He runs his hand through his hair roughly, as if trying to rip the despair from his own head. And then, without looking at you, he blurts out, "Okay, fine, if that's how you want it to be." The phrase, laden with resentment, cuts through the air. He speaks as if you were being unfair, as if you were the problem, as if your refusal were cruelty, and not self-protection. You take a deep breath, aware that this behavior is typical of someone caught in a maneuver they shouldn't have attempted. It's defensive, aggressive, but empty. It's the last escape mechanism before an emotional collapse. He takes a few more steps, grabs his backpack, zips it shut, and heads for the door without looking back. With each step, he seems heavier, not physically, but emotionally. It's the weight of a thwarted plan, the weight of facing the fact that you weren't manipulated as he expected, the weight of realizing that the responsibility finally has returned to his hands. He pauses for a moment in the doorway. You almost think he's going to turn around, apologize, show some sincerity. But instead, he just lets out an irritated sigh and leaves, leaving the door swinging behind him like a misplaced comma in a long, painful sentence. The room falls silent, and for the first time since you sat there, you feel peace. Not a complete peace, not a light peace, but the peace of someone who has finally set boundaries where there was invasion, where there was emotional abuse disguised as a cry for help. The nurse, who had remained in the background until then, slowly approaches. Her gaze is serene, understanding, and at the same time full of that firmness that only comes from someone who has seen this type of situation happen to more people than she would like. She gently places her hand on his shoulder, a simple gesture, but full of meaning. "You did the right thing," she says. The voice is soft, but it has a weight of authority that brings immediate comfort. You take a deep breath and feel your body a little lighter, as if you've just survived a great danger. And, in a way, you did. The nurse sits beside you, maintaining the posture of an experienced professional, and continues. "Few people have the courage to do what you did today. When it comes to family, many sign with their eyes closed, and spend years paying for it. You realize how real this is, how close you came to falling into a trap that wasn't just emotional. It was legal, financial, and psychological. It was a trap that could have sucked years of your life, your resources, your stability, even your peace of mind." She continues, "It's very important for you to understand that reading before signing isn't a lack of love. It's protection. It's responsibility. It's maturity." You nod in agreement, feeling a mixture of gratitude and belated shock. Only now, with the danger averted, can your mind imagine the worst-case scenario. What would have happened if you had simply signed, believing that family doesn't deceive family? You would have taken on debt. He would have made difficult decisions on behalf of someone else. He would have been sued. He would have been carrying a burden that wasn't his. And all of this because he trusted too much. You look at the document almost as if it were an unarmed bomb. It's no longer a neutral object. It's a symbol, a warning, a concrete reminder of how a simple gesture, a signature, can change everything. The nurse emphasizes, "I always say this. Never sign anything in the hospital without reading it. Never. In here, a single page can change lives. For better or for worse." You take a deep breath, absorbing this bitter but necessary truth, and that's when a decision begins to form within you. It's not impulsive. It's not based on anger. It's rational, mature, and extremely important. You pick up your cell phone, open the agenda, and schedule an appointment with a lawyer, not because you want to punish your brother, not because you're excessively afraid, but now you understand the depth of the situation. You almost fell into a legal trap. He almost became a guarantor for debts that aren't his. He almost lost his financial freedom over a subscription that would have cost much more than a simple scribble on paper. A lawyer will be able to explain, detail, and advise. It will provide a legal explanation of what you almost faced emotionally. It will help you prepare for the future. It will teach you how to never be caught off guard again. You end the call and put your phone back in your pocket with a feeling of heaviness and relief at the same time. The kind of feeling that only comes when someone takes an action that changes the course of their life. The nurse smiles again, this time more gently. You did for yourself what many people fail to do. You protected yourself. And then, with a genuine gleam in her eyes, she says, "Reading before signing saved your financial life today. Believe me." You feel the truth of these words deep down, because that's exactly it. It was reading, the choice to stop, breathe, and read, that prevented you from being dragged into a chaos that isn't yours. It was the care, yours and the nurses, that saved you. And there, sitting in that hospital that had witnessed so much suffering and so much healing, you realize a lesson that you will carry with you forever. If someone tries to push something on you in a hurry, be suspicious. When someone tries to get you to sign something without thinking, stop. And when love asks you to give up on yourself, choose to protect yourself. This is how lives are preserved. This is how stories don't turn into silent tragedies. The room is quieter now. Your brother is gone, the door has stopped swinging, and the nurse has returned to work, carrying with her the serenity of someone who, perhaps without realizing it, saved you from a gigantic problem. You remain seated for a few moments, feeling the complex mix of emotions coursing through your body: relief, sadness, indignation, maturity, and above all, clarity. Clarity about what almost happened. Clarity about the type of person you need to be going forward. Clarity on how even a small gesture, a simple signature, can change the rest of your life. You take the document, fold it calmly, and put it inside the folder the hospital gave you when you arrived. Not as a souvenir, but as a symbol. A symbol of a boundary you finally learned to respect. A symbol of the self-love you prioritized over manipulation. A symbol of a limit you will never again allow anyone to cross. After a few seconds of deep breathing, you stand up, leave the room, and walk to the hospital's outdoor area. The natural light of the late afternoon hits your face, bringing with it an almost cinematic contrast. That moment when the protagonist finally understands the lesson that life tried to teach in such a harsh way. You stop in front of one of the large windows, where the reflection in the glass gives you an image that is not just physical, it's emotional. You see yourself, but not as someone who entered that hospital a few hours earlier. Now you see yourself as someone who has grown, someone who has awakened, someone who has finally understood that protecting yourself is not selfishness, it's a necessity. And then, in your video, you position yourself in front of the camera, firm, lucid, aware. In the background, you can still see the hospital entrance, people passing by, ambulances arriving and leaving, symbolizing that, while the world keeps turning, you have just experienced something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. You look directly into the lens, not like someone playing a role, but like someone speaking a truth that has pierced their heart. Her voice comes out calm, yet strong, laden with the real experience she has just lived through. Sometimes, the greatest betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from those we trust most. The phrase resonates within you, and also within those watching, because it's universal, it's painful, it's profound. Everyone, at some point, has felt the weight of disappointment from someone close. And you know that this phrase will penetrate deep into the hearts of your audience. You continue, maintaining a steady gaze, and never, ever, sign anything without reading it. The hidden page is where the truth lies. The power of this phrase lies not only in its practical advice, it lies in its metaphorical meaning, because it's not just about documents. It's about life. It's about relationships. It's about choices. It's about everything that is sometimes hidden from us, hoping that we will accept it blindly. The hidden page is the place where it hides. The lie, manipulation, the hidden interest, the background, the burden they want you to carry. And when you say that on camera, you're not just telling a story. You're delivering a powerful warning to your viewers. A warning that can save others from falling into emotional, financial, or legal traps. You then take a deep breath and your expression softens a little, not because the pain has lessened, but because you know you have transformed that pain into wisdom. Life teaches in different ways, you say. Sometimes it teaches with love. Other times, it teaches with shock. Today, it taught me that prudence is not a lack of confidence. It's protection. It's maturity. It's respect for myself. You pause, letting the weight of reflection settle, and continue. I know family is important. I know love is essential. But love doesn't mean carrying the world on your shoulders. Love doesn't mean being naive. Love doesn't mean accepting anything just because it comes from someone close. Love also means saying no when necessary. Love also means setting boundaries. Love also means protecting yourself. The camera captures you up close, your face, your gaze, the sincerity of the moment. And then you deliver the final message, the one that closes the story arc perfectly. Today I learned that prudence saves lives, and that having the courage to say no can be the most loving thing you can do for yourself. After that, her expression changes. It becomes a little softer, more welcoming, more human. You know you've touched a wound that many people carry. And then comes the moment to engage the audience, to invite them to reflect and interact. The perfect moment for a strong and sincere CTA. You tilt your head slightly and say, if this story has captivated you this far, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me bring you more intense stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, would you sign the document, or would you have been suspicious right away? The ending is an invitation to share, to dialogue, to create community. But above all, it's an invitation to awaken. You turn off the camera, take a deep breath, and feel something different inside. It's not just the end of a story, it's the beginning of a new way of living. A way in which you never again allow anyone to write your destiny on hidden pages.